Live from the KDAL studios at Lake and Superior Street in downtown Duluth, it stars Over the Prairie with 8-time Minnesota Music Award winner Paul Metsa.
And I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight.
Featuring cool people from all walks of life. Check out previous show podcasts at KDAL610.com. The phone lines are open at 218-722-0839. Now, here's Paul Metsa.
And I wish I could see stars over the prairie, stars over the prairie tonight.
Good morning, ladies, gentlemen. You are listening to Stars Over the Prairie on the Big K 610 AM 103.9 FM. This is your host, Paul Metsa, with my wingman, Chris Allen. We've got some great shows that have appeared on the radio waves before, but we thought it was kind of the end of the year. We picked some of our favorite ones and play them just for you. What do we do here on Stars Over the Prairie? We interview stars, people that used to be stars, people that want to be stars, people that don't give a damn about being stars, people that just go outside and have a beer and look at the stars, or sometimes a cup of coffee or tea.
Whatever your choice of beverages.
That's right. Chris, how was Santa good to you?
Santa was very good to me, yeah. I got some very good gifts.
Is that good?
I got some air drumsticks.
Oh, cool.
You've seen those? You can play them in the air. You just kind of...
No.
You can pretend to play drums, and it has all the drum noises for you.
I've had drummers over the years that have pretended to play drums. They last for one gig.
I do it every time I get behind the drums.
Keep me away from cocktails at the dinner parties, because if there's a piano or occasionally a drum set, I'll hold forth until I get booted out of the party. But lots of great things going on. I just saw the new Bob Dylan movie, A Complete Unknown, the biopic.
Yeah.
Everybody calls biopic. I pronounce it biopic. Up in Hibbing, of all places. It was the Minnesota debut a week ago Friday, and it was a really enjoyable film. And, it takes place in about 5 or 6 years of Bob Dylan's career. It starts when he's cruising in over the George Washington Bridge into Manhattan, hitchhiked from Minneapolis. I knew the two guys that drove him, Diamond Dave Whitaker and Dave Morton, who drove Bob to the edge of town. They were a couple of Dinkytown beatniks. And like I say in my book, Alphabet Jazz, who but an Iron Ranger would hitchhike with his guitar out to New York in the middle of winter?
Right.
Well, that would be Bob Dylan. But it's really great. I highly recommend it. It's now at the West Theater. I'm going to check that out. But we're going to get right into it. We've got 3 great guests tonight. The first guy up is a fellow by the name of Eddie Pleasant. I got a hold of him through my buddy Billy Alcorn. Eddie was 92 years old when we spoke to him, or 93. He's not with us anymore, but he's a true character. He's written thousands of songs. He's had his songs recorded by Kitty Wells, Lefty Frizzell, Farron Young, and Hank Williams III, who he road managed for a while. And he was also the guy, you're a rock and roller in the biz, Chris Allen.
Yeah.
He was also the guy that had a picture of Hank Williams Jr. put on a T-shirt, and he's credited with being the first guy to sell T-shirt merchandise.
Really?
At concerts, yeah. Just incredible guy. If you're from Texas or down south, you're going to love this guy's accent. So we're going to play a little bit of that. I recorded him on I have a radio show that I've told you about, running for 10 and a half years on AM 950 down in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities, called the Wall of Power Radio Hour. And when I was going through doing a little year-end bookkeeping, I said, I got to share Eddie. He's a character. You'll really enjoy it. And then we're going to run the second half of the great Charlie Parr interview where he played and sang. When we first got into the studio, I believe it was in April, was one of our first guests. Charlie is actually going to be doing a residency every Wednesday night at 7 o'clock over at the Cedar Lounge, brought to you by our friends at Earth Rider Brewing, Tim Nelson and company. And then for the whole second hour, Chris, we are going to have a guy that is now, I've been listening to him for years. I've gotten to know him. I so appreciate his friendship. The great Al Sparhawk is going to play and chat for the whole hour here on Stars Over the Prairie on the Big K. But we're going to just jump into it right now. I want to thank my buddies Billy Alcorn and C.J. Udine.
Did C.J. used to play steel for
Yeah,
Molly and
that's
the
him.
Haymakers?
Yeah, that's him.
I know him.
Small world, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is.
And we're going to shout out, we got a new regular listener, a great author, retired District Court Judge Mark Munger's out there.
Nice.
He gifted me a nice copy of his new book of short stories.
Okay.
That we had him in here when he was running in the last election, but we're going to have him in to talk about books. The guy's really bright. And he stopped off at my regular gig at Carmody's Pub, which we do on Sundays, but we're not doing it tomorrow. But I want to let people know the big New Year's Eve show at Carmody's Pub, 308 East Superior, will be Paul Metsa and Sonny Earl from 6 to 8.
Wow.
Yeah, and then Bruce Woodman does his jam, and then Sonny and I are going to get a bite to eat, probably go to Pickwick and get a big fat old steak with Sonny and his wife, then come back down and ring in the New Year's. So put that on your New Year's Eve plan. But with so today, Eddie Pleasant, Charlie Parr, and Al Sparhawk, all friends of mine, and we're going to start out with a late great Eddie Pleasant, first here on Stars Over the Prairie. We have a most fascinating guest tonight from Nashville with two of his buddies. Mr. Eddie Pleasant is a legendary Nashville songwriter. He's been in the music biz longer than most of us have been alive. He's got stories to tell. He's written songs for Hank Williams Jr., Hank Williams III, Kitty Wells, Farron Young, Lefty Frizzell, to name just a few. We're speaking to him. He's at the Mabel Carter Center in Nashville, and he's with two friends of mine, an old buddy of mine, Billy Alcorn, who went down to Nashville 25 years ago as a songwriter. Now he runs Alcorn Custom Case, making custom road cases for everybody from Metallica to Stevie Wonder to the Osborne Brothers and more. With him is another Minnesota musician named C.J. Udine, whose dad was a legendary pedal steel player. CJ's been playing with Gary Allan for years, and with them is their very good friend who they just moved into the Mabel Carter Center, the phenomenal Eddie Pleasant. Eddie, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Listening to you, Paul. You're a good talker. I used to talk on radio a lot. I put up T-shirts on the front of every show and in the middle of every show. And I talk like you're doing now. But you're doing a good job of it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your support, Eddie. There's so much to talk about, but when I was reading some of your bio on the interweb, I see that you are actually a relative of Elvis Presley.
I'm a first cousin of his grandpa, my grandma was brothers and sisters. My mama's folks come from Tupelo, Mississippi. And I was like, given it 24 years, they fell off that mountain, in 1975. And Buddy Lee had us working Billy Thundercloud. We were working at Elvis the next year when he died. I seen Colonel Parker one time, and I seen Elvis one time. But if he hadn't died in August when he did, the next year we was opening on all his shows. And I turned down Garth Brooks. They begged me to do Garth Brooks 30 years ago. He's the biggest ever been. I turned down Reba, Garth Brooks, and Rascal Flatts. They all wanted to go, but I would have been with Elvis if he hadn't died. He's a cousin to me. That helps any.
Yeah, Paul, this is CJ here. What Eddie's basically referencing there is they were working with, Eddie was Hank Williams Jr.'s right-hand man for probably
24 years.
24 years.
Wow.
And the next year that Elvis passed away, that year was a 77. The Hank Jr. was scheduled to be the opening act with the Elvis Presley show. So his chance to meet Elvis and Colonel Tom was that year in Vegas, where they kind of came to see Hank Jr. and finalize some of those details for that tour for 1978.
Wow, thanks for that background info, CG. Now, Billy Alcorn, you and I are in touch very
fairly regularly. And our special guest, Eddie Pleasant, who we're speaking with tonight from the Maybelle Carter Center in Nashville, you brought him up about 10 days ago. You do a great imitation of Mr. Eddie Pleasant. And I said, boy, I'd love to meet that man. So we're talking to him for the first time tonight. But tell us a little bit about how you and CJ helped Mr. Pleasant get into the Maybelle Carter Center. Tell us a little bit about the Maybelle Carter Center down there.
Well, CJ introduced me to Eddie about, like you said, 25 years ago. CJ was out with Hank 3, and Eddie was out with Hank 3 as the T-shirt guy. And Eddie's a legendary T-shirt guy as well as a songwriter. And he's sold, actually, rumor has it that he sold the very first T-shirt ever sold. And that's probably the truth. But anyway, as far as getting Eddie, CJ called me one day, the first part of August, saying that Eddie was in trouble, that he had been left off. The social services people called it a dumping. He had been left off at a hospital and wheeled in and just left, and he didn't have a place to live. And CJ said, "What are we going to do?" Well, I was on my deck, and my wife's friend Jan said, "Well, let me call up Carlene Carter and see if there's an apartment at the Maybelle Carter Center." I'd never even heard of the place, but Johnny Cash built this place for Mother Maybelle.
Hey, this is Paul Metsa. We had a gremlin in the network here. We're having a bit of a technical difficulty. So while my wingman is getting it figured out, is there anything coming, Chris?
We were talking about some of the people that were on this recording with C.J. Udine. I brought up that he plays for Molly and the Haymakers, and you were saying he does all sorts of things now.
Yeah, he was. I think he plays with a guy. Plays with a guy out of Nashville. His last name is Allen. I know that, but he's been. His dad was a legendary pedal steel player with all the greats. One of the first big pedal steel players back in the 50s and 60s. I think he's still around. We're going to have to get Udine Sr. on the phone. Hey, before I forget, if you're driving up north and you're passing through my hometown of Virginia, Minnesota, don't hesitate to stop into Flamer's Bar on the corner of Chestnut Street, which is the main drag, and 2nd Avenue. It's just a lovely little bar. My buddy Gary Flame runs it. It's got a great Iron Range vibe, really reasonable prices on their beer and cocktails. They got a bunch of hockey jerseys from famous hockey players from around the region who are hanging their jerseys in the bar. It's just a good Iron Range bar, and if you want to play a little pull tab, that's the place to go.
I think we got it back.
All right, so here we go, back with Eddie Pleasant, C.J. Udine, and Billy Alcorn. Sorry about that.
My wife's friend Jan said, "Well, let me call up Carlene Carter and see if there's an apartment at the Maybelle Carter Center." I'd never even heard of the place. But Johnny Cash built this place for Mother Maybelle, his mother-in-law, June Carter's mother, Maybelle Carter,
from the Carter family,
Carter.
Sure.
Yeah, but anyway, so then we called here, and they pulled some strings via Carlene and got Eddie in here, and we had to go through all the COVID protocol and all that, but we got him in right away, and thank God, some great foundations in Nashville came to his rescue.
And which ones were they, Billy? Let's recognize them.
I'm going to hand that off to CJ because CJ composed a marvelous letter that kind of put Eddie's thing into perspective, and it is a sad story. I mean,
we don't have to get into the details.
Yeah,
other than
I'm not going to go into the details of it, but. He was in a bad spot. CJ will take it from here.
Yeah, well, the Music Cares Foundation and the Opry Trust Foundation looked at Eddie as basically an ideal candidate. And they really stepped up, and they came up with a big chunk of money to take care of Eddie for the first year here. And they really stepped up with Eddie, and it was a situation where we just couldn't be happier. And now where we're at is Eddie went from a place where he was in dire straits, but now when you're talking to Eddie, he really found a spot where he's really happy, and he's been writing songs. How many songs would you say a day you are writing?
About 3 every night. I say I can't sleep at night for some reason. I write 2 or 3 of them every night.
Eddie Pleasant.
40 or 50 in the drawer here now.
Eddie Pleasant, how many songs have you written in your lifetime?
5,000.
Wow.
I got 2 file cabinets here full. But one thing you might want to know, in the old days, long time ago, Jim Reeves and Hank Sr. was the 2 biggest country acts out there. And Hank Sr. Jim Reeves recorded The Lonesome Waltz and was recording 2 a.m. and he got killed in an airplane crash. But I lived in Waco back then. I could call Jim Reeves and talk to him. He was one of the biggest acts out there back then.
One of my dad's favorites.
I went to see him one day, went to his house, and Bud Logan, the bass player, said, Jim here? Nope, he's out of town. About that time, Jim walked downstairs. Come on in, Eddie. And he's playing Billy Bob one time in Fort Worth. Hey, Eddie Pleasant's in the crowd. And Jim Reeves was one of the biggest acts out there back then, but if he'd have lived, he would have done some more songs for me.
Eddie also, sorry to interrupt, Eddie's also grew up with Willie Nelson. They grew up how far?
Oh, he's from Albert, Texas, and I'm from Waco, which is 17 miles apart. We played that county line when we was in our 20s, and I played the College Inn in Waco, a club, for 17 years straight. And if he wasn't working on Saturday night, he'd come sit in. Ooh, I'd hate to see him come in, because I strictly Bob Wills on the beat, and Willie is off the beat, you know. I'd hate to hear that off beat. I never dreamed Willie would be big. Look how big he is today.
Eddie, and what Eddie's talking about there, Paul, is Eddie was playing drums in this band, and him and Willie grew up together. Eddie was straight on the beat with the Bob Wills style.
Sure.
And Willie would come in and sing offbeat, and it was just a train wreck for Eddie.
Yeah, that's a little bit the late, great Eddie Pleasant with C.J. Udine, Minnesota guy, and Billy Alcorn, Minnesota guy. Both those guys are doing great down in Nashville. We're going to play a little bit more of that in the coming weeks. But when I was doing a little bookkeeping and going through my files, I stumbled on that, and Eddie was just such a character. And you were listening to a 93-year-old man. He used to send me, Chris, songs. He'd get song ideas, and he'd cut pictures out of magazines and hand wrote the on top of the folder that he sent it. And just he was one of a kind. Men like that. They're just they're getting fewer and farther between.
Less and less of them.
Yeah. So I'm glad we got a chance to hear that. I've got over 700 hours with all my television show, this show, and my show in Minneapolis.
Wow.
So we will be revisiting golden parts of that archive. Speaking of golden parts, a man that I heard in 1997 when I ran an open stage at Mazelak's Bar in northeast Minneapolis. He had been living in Minneapolis, moved up to Duluth. He'd drive down twice a month. He looked like a 9th grade geography teacher, real mild-mannered and soft-spoken, played a national steel guitar, and I said to myself, this guy's really good. Drove all the way down in the winter to play it. I've been a huge fan ever since. This was a show we recorded with the great Charlie Parr when we got started last April. Here you go, Mr. Charlie Parr.
Right after our commercial break.
Yeah, right after the commercials. Thanks, Chris.
I'm Sydney, and I had Z LASIK at Weiss Eye Center. Oh, man, camping and like being able to look up at the stars or like wake up to the stars or wake up to the sun and not have to kind of fumble around to see where my glasses are. So I'm looking forward to that eventually. It's like getting out and enjoying nature with sort of no barrier. Oh, the staff were really great. Yeah, it was really, always felt pretty taken care of, and very friendly staff, and they were answering my questions even if they were like really, really trivial. It's something that you got to have like a bit of trust in this doctor.
Weiss Eye Center is the only clinic to offer blade-free Z LASIK in the Northland. To find out more and to arrange your free consultation, call 218-625-1917 today or visit WeissEyeCenter.com for more information. Weiss Eye Center. See the best.
If you're looking for a great hang in downtown Duluth, I highly suggest Carmody's Irish Pub. They're located at 308 East Superior Street, open Tuesday through Sunday. The host and hostess are Eddie and Liz. Eddie is a retired Chicago cop. If he happens to be in the club when you're there, talk to him. He's got more stories than I do. They've also got a great jam session every Tuesday night from 8 to 11 with Bruce Woodman. So if you're a musician, tried and true, that has been out there playing and just want to go try out some new stuff, go down and hang out with Bruce and the crew. Or if you're just up and coming, bring your horn or your stringed instrument or just want to sing, go sit in with Bruce Woodman every Tuesday night at Carmody's Pub, 308 East Superior Street.
River City Records and Books, voted Best Record Store of 2023 in the Twin Ports by the Duluth Reader, has in stock thousands of new and used vinyl records, from classic rock to punk, grunge, and metal, to hip-hop, rap, and jazz, reggae, and dub. Thousands of books, CDs, DVDs, Blu-ray, and VHS. Also a large selection of cassettes, comic books, and music magazines. Stop in and see them at 1814 West Superior Street in the friendly Lincoln Park Craft District. Open 9 to 7, 7 days a week.
You're listening to Stars Over the Prairie with Paul Metsa. The phone lines are open. 218-722-0839.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Paul Metsa on Stars Over the Prairie Radio, broadcasting from the Big K in the Zenith City by the Unsalted Sea, 1 block away from Bob Dylan Way and 237 somersaults down the hill from his childhood home. Paulie G, what other kinds of shows are coming up? You got any list you can share?
There are so many good shows coming up, especially in the Duluth Twin Ports area. You know, the West Theater lately has just had an amazing lineup. They've got Destiny Rawls' Soul Review that's coming up this Thursday.
I used to book her dad, Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny.
Rawls.
It's
Johnny,
the show's actually with him. So
yeah, I got to go say hi to my buddy Johnny. Yeah.
Yeah. The the other thing that the West has going on right now is the Garfield movie. And there's a couple local twists, tie-ins to that. You know, the original voice of Garfield was from Duluth, and his name was Lorenzo Music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and now the new voice of Garfield is Chris Pratt from all the Marvel movies and stuff. And
who was born in Virginia.
Born in Virginia, Minnesota.
Let's keep it northern Minnesota
That's
here.
right. Across northern Minnesota, there's some great stuff coming up. In Detroit Lakes, Martin Zeller's playing. Over at near Walker or Brainerd Lakes area, Lakes Jam is coming up. And Chris Allen, I'm sure you and I are probably in the same boat with this. We both love us some good 90s rock. And
definitely. My buddy Bill Satry, that was here with my partner Shelley.
Yeah.
He runs that.
Does he? Oh, that's awesome.
I mean, he doesn't. Yeah. He's not the owner, but
sure.
He is the host of it for the weekend.
Well, the band Live, who I played their CD nonstop. The whatever, I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, they're playing, and then Lightning Strikes. Lightning Crashes. Yeah, and then over in Grand Rapids next weekend, is Festival Rialto. Over at Rapids Brewing, that features Wild Horses, Rich Mattson and the North Stars, Feeding Leroy, Molly Mahar, and the Fishheads, and not to mention our in-studio guest today, Mr. Charlie Parr.
Charlie, you've got a show coming up in Grand Rapids, right?
Apparently.
Call your agent.
I'll put it in my book. Yeah, I'm playing over there for the festival. It's whatever date he said it was.
Charlie, how many shows a year do you do?
Well, it depends. I think my heaviest year I did 282 road shows.
That's a lot of road shows. That's a lot of shows if you're in town.
I'm divorced now, Paul.
Well, if and for any guys out there that want to figure out a way to get out of the marriage, pick up a guitar and follow Charlie around.
There you go. Yeah, but it's I've tried to I get along fine with my ex-wife, and the thing about music, and I think you can probably relate to this, is it kind of becomes all consuming.
Yeah.
And those gigs, I live to perform. I want to play.
Right.
I don't even making records is fun and everything, but that's not the point.
Right.
The point is the show.
Right. Absolutely.
So.
What? How you got 2 kids? What do you got, Charlie?
Yeah, I've got a 17-year-old and a 22-year-old. They're
Wow.
both in Duluth here, and they're both doing great. I just love them to death. I'm huge fans.
Well, I've said for years, man, I know how tough the musician's life is. And when you got a musician as a mother or father raising healthy kids, man, you're way ahead of the game.
Yeah, it's a challenge, I know. And for a long time, my then wife, she's so supportive, and encouraged me to get into this. I probably, I'm a latecomer. I spent my 20s and early 30s, working as an outreach worker with a homeless outreach project, and I loved that kind of work. But it was ironically, it was having a baby that changed my trajectory, because I was gigging,
Yeah, right.
I was working when I was coming down and
Oh,
playing.
yeah, you were working all the time.
And so I would gig at night and play and do my job during the day. And then when the baby came, and we realized that you can't afford daycare.
Right.
If you're just making a little bit of money, you can't do it. So we talked about it, and I quit my job and I gigged more.
Yeah.
And so I was a stay-at-home dad, and then in the summer times we would hit the road as a little family and play and just tour together, which was, probably not the best way to raise kids, but it was really an interesting thing to do.
I was talking to Ani DeFranco. She was in town playing Bayfront Park a couple years ago, and I had met her out at the tribute to Woody Guthrie in '96, and when she was just coming on board. And I went to see her a couple weeks later at the Northrop Auditorium. Man, it was like seeing the Beatles, right? It was just incredible. And so we hadn't seen each other since then, and she was telling me, her daughter, she had learned how to travel with her daughter. She said her daughter loves to travel on the airplane and gets it all together for her, and the daughter's the one that's organizing Ani to go on the road.
That's sweet.
So we kind of go back to that story that I started to talk about. So we're down at Ashland, which was a great show. And you know what's fun, Charlie, what I was really reminded, because I followed you over the years, and I'm, your biggest fan, and I've been bragging that I said I gave you one of your first gigs at Mayslax. What's the one of your first shows down in Minneapolis, playing that open stage at Mayslax?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I would do... When I was living down there, I bussed a lot.
But when you were when you're driving down, well, maybe you moved back up here. Yeah,
I moved up to Duluth in the '90s.
Yeah,
and I figured it was kind of over with as far as being able to gig down in the cities. And I played up here. I played at Sir Benedict's.
Yeah,
and I got a weekly gig up here, and I figured that there you go. I'm going to be okay.
Yeah,
but then going back down to play at Mayslax was kind of started it all, and then I'd take anything that I could get.
Yeah.
I'd go down and play at the Viking. I'd go down and play at Ginkgo's Coffee House.
Sure, Ginkgo's,
wherever I could go. So,
well, you've done incredible. It's been so fun because I believe Trampled by Turtles, one of their first gigs was at Springfest at Mayslax back in the early 2000s. Jeff Maritko, who you might have met, he owned the proprietor there, and then he's hosted several shows out at Moe's in Mounds View, where I've done my Blackies, Wolf and Annie, raising money for the humane shelters. And actually, I just stumbled on one of those Facebook memories of Kerner playing the Wabash Cannonball at one of the folk festivals, nailing it to the wall.
I bet.
I might add. But you told a great story when we were backstage. I might have had you on my radio show, my Minneapolis radio show, about putting, was it the burritos on the engine and heating them up before the gig?
Well, it's practical, isn't it?
Yeah.
I learned it. That's a really old technique. Railroaders used to do it, but my dad did it.
Really?
It had a sheet metal box made, and clamped it onto the exhaust manifold of a Ford 6, the straight 6. The manifold comes out like a shelf,
right?
And it gets it's an inefficient engine. It gets really hot,
right?
And then, and this is probably not real savory, but would go and steal sweet corn out of people's gardens.
It happens.
And pull the floss off, leave all the husk on, throw sweet corn in that box, put water in it, it had a lid, shut the hood. 15 miles later, you're having sweet corn.
You got to put out a cookbook.
And
you need to put out a cookbook.
And then when I started touring, I'm like, what touring is like. You never get a decent meal. If you want to, anything they have in a truck stop is probably going to give you a heart attack.
Yeah.
So what I was doing is, in venue, especially for folkies, venues are nice. They feed you. People want to feed you. I take all the food I can get, wrap up all the leftovers. I travel with Tupperware,
Yeah.
Wrap up the leftovers. The next day, which you get up in the morning.
I get it. You get Charlie Parr's own line of Tupperware for on the road. I'm gonna take over your marketing here, Parr. I've got a lot of ideas.
You get up in the morning after the gig, you find yourself at wherever you wake up at, and I would travel with a package of tortillas. And whatever you had the night before, whether it's beef stew or lo mein, wrap it up in that burrito, wrap it in tin foil, and depending on the vehicle, I had a little wire harness usually works best, and you wire that burrito to the exhaust manifold.
You got to wire the burrito. I've been saying it for years.
Yep, and then you just kind of if you know, there's a couple of variables, the weather. How hot it is outside, stuff like that. If it's, how far you're going. And, if you stop for gas, you check your lunch and see how it's doing. And it depends. If I have leftover pizza, that's just stupid easy because I stop and get gas. First thing I do is pop the hood and throw that pizza on the manifold. Get my gas, go inside, use the restroom, get my coffee, come back out. The pizza's hot,
Now, what about? I know you like to. You had a really cool ride the last down in Ashland. I remember it was really a cool color green. But you sleep in your truck a lot when you're on the road, correct?
All the time.
Yeah,
you can't afford anything.
Yeah,
and hotels are expensive. Plus, if you're gigging, you're playing till at least like 10, 11, maybe 1 in the morning.
Yeah.
You go to the hotel, and if you're out west, if you're traveling out west, you've got 6 to 10 hours of driving ahead of you.
Yeah.
There's no way that it's worth it to rent a hotel room for 5 hours worth of probably not the best sleep you've ever had.
Right.
So I usually travel in minivans or station wagons, try to get good mileage. Years and years and years ago when my son graduated to a big boy bed, he had a memory foam mattress on his junior bed. I'm like, well, this is memory foam, dude. I'm taking this. It fits.
You're on the floor, son.
Yeah, it fits in every vehicle I've ever had. So when we upgraded him to a regular bed, I've still got the old dinosaur sheets that he had on as a kid.
Oh, that's incredible.
And it's gone with me in every vehicle. And I sleep like a baby. The thing is, you have to find a place to sleep that you're not going to get the knock on the window.
Yeah.
Or hassled or anything like that. And I've been pretty lucky. I've been able to figure out places that I feel safe. A lot of the times, if the venues know what you're doing, they will offer up a parking spot.
Do you ever get, when you're at one of those truck stops, a little pretty lady knocking on your door?
No. I deliberately will. You don't want to park. There's certain places in the truck stop you don't want to park.
Okay.
You don't want to do certain things with your lights when you stop. You just.
Oh, okay. I got it. There's a code. There's a code.
I learned the code. Not because because I talk to people. Go to the truck stop and I'm trying to use all the facilities and I'm not a truck driver. So I'm in there saying, hey, I want to wash my clothes.
Right.
And the truck drivers, super friendly group of folks.
Yeah.
They will almost always say, yeah, and they'll tell this guy's with us, he'll wash his clothes. And then they told me all about this stuff. When you come in, don't blink your lights. Don't, park over there. Don't park over there. All the little weird rules of truck stops. Paulie
G, now you're a married guy, so if you're ever out there on the road, write these tips down. I don't
Yeah.
want to see you get into trouble.
Yeah.
Gets pulled over by some Andy
Just what I need.
small town cop.
Charlie, what has been your favorite van up to this point? The best van you had?
The best van I had was actually a little tiny cargo van. It was smaller than a minivan, but it looked like a Sprinter in miniature, and it was really good.
What was it? A Toyota? Or
No, it was branded as a Dodge, but it's actually a Fiat.
Sure. Oh, cool.
And I drove the wheels off.
Yeah, I
of
bet
that.
you did.
And I had the back all tricked out. There was no windows in the back. It was all panel, and so it was insulated. Had solar. It was just like a little tiny camper. It was a cocoon. And I like that a lot.
Those are hip these days.
I finally got it to the point where it would cost too much to fix it.
Sure.
And I ended up finding a used Toyota Sienna.
Sure.
Which is fine. It gets pretty good mileage and it sleeps pretty comfortable. It's also, since it's a mom van, it's very invisible.
Yeah.
And I like that. I don't want to attract any attention to myself. I don't want the big white cargo with the ladder racks on the top of it. I want something really quiet, and no one's going to think twice about it.
Practical at its best.
Yeah.
We've got Charlie Parr in the studio, and we'd be remiss if we didn't ask Mr. Parr to play another one. Could you play something off your new record, Little Son? You can play whatever you want, but that's a gorgeous record, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, I can. That last one, too, that was off of Little Son. That was called 10 Watt. And then I'll play this one's also off of the record. This is called Stray. How can you say he's gone astray? The days find him alone, always miles from anywhere, never finding his way home. How can you say he's always dirty? Well, he's got nowhere to wash. Everyone avoids him, no matter what the cost. To his damaged ego, to his worn-out shoes, thin clothes against the cold, thin hearts against his own. Let the rope out easy, bring everyone on board. Mend the broken hearts, take on their heavy loads. Take on their heavy loads. Take on their heavy loads. Mend the broken hearts, take on their heavy loads. He hears about your religion and all about his sinful ways and all about the God who loves him will punish him anyways. But he already knows the lake of fire. He swims in it every day. He's beaten down with neglect, burned with hypocrisy. How can you say there's a stray in the middle of your town? You can feel the anger in your eyes, where empathy should be found. I hear he's lost his family, or they let him wander away. Can anyone speak on his behalf? Well, someone's rigged the game. Let the rope out easy. Bring everyone on board. Mend the broken hearts and take on their heavy loads. And take on their heavy loads. And take on their heavy loads. Mend the broken hearts. Take on their heavy loads.
Very nice, Charlie Parr.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate
on
that.
Spider John Kerner's old 12-string. Doesn't get any cooler than that. So, tell us about, you've been to Europe several times, correct?
13.
13 times?
Yeah, I'll go back in September and October this year. That'll be my 14th trip over.
Wow.
So.
You drive by yourself over there?
It depends. This time I'm going to. The last time I actually did not, and the time before that, I did public transportation, which was really, really, it was great. It was really challenging, and it stressed me out a lot. So this time I'm actually going to borrow a van from a buddy of mine in Holland, and I'm just going to drive. Mikkel Beckman is coming with me, so he and I are going to do that together.
We did that fun book show. You both had books out last fall in St. Paul. Yeah, that guy gets around, man, isn't he? He's doing some kind of hiking some trail now in Spain or something.
Scotland.
Yeah,
Scotland. He's just finishing up. He made it across the moors, and he's heading for home in a couple of days.
Well, give him my absolute best. We've got just a few more minutes. I can't be. Oh, do we got to talk about one of our great sponsors, Paulie?
Yeah,
G?
again, we just want to say, if you really enjoy these, in studio performances and these interviews that we're having with just amazing artists on Stars Over the Prairie, please support our advertisers because they make this show happen. One of the really cool ones that we're happy to have on board is Grow Your Own Garden Supply in Duluth's West End. They have high-end gardening products for plant cultivation, and they'll help you with anything that you need if you need advice or tips on how to grow your own. And they have lots of good gifts and other things in their store. Brooke and Marios are amazing, and they have an appreciation for music in their own right. So they've got a lot of friends in the music community throughout the state of Minnesota, and they're on the corner of 18th and Western Michigan in the west side of Duluth. And you can check out all their stuff at growyourowngardensupply.com, and grow kind and grow local.
Charlie Parr, I had my radio show down in Minneapolis about a year ago. I was talking to the band Story Hill. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you bumped into those gentlemen or not. They've been around for 30 years, and they came from Bozeman, came to Minneapolis by way, I think, Carleton College or St. Olaf. Got their thing going in Minneapolis. Then now both live back in Bozeman, but they were saying, between Charlie Parr, our good buddy Al Sparhawk from Low, and Found by Charles, Duluth is like a thing now.
Yeah.
Have you found that out? I mean, people, it's like, I've always, I'm from the Iron Range. I've always loved Duluth. Yeah. But I have to give you and Al and the Turtles great credit for spreading the word. Let's not get it so famous because we've got enough people already.
That's the truth.
But what did you love about your years in Duluth and coming and visiting your family up here?
Well, when I came up here, the music scene up here was in full swing. And one of the first people I met when I got to town was Al Sparhawk, and just how much kindness and support he showed me and introduced me to folks, and everybody was supportive and kind. And we'd have, it's not a big town, it's not a huge place, so we would have, they'd invite me to come do shows, right? And it'd be me and maybe the Black Eyed Snakes, maybe the Dames, If Thousands, ambient music, Mary Bew, just the Crew Jones, it would be such a weird mix of music throughout the evening, and everyone loved everything that was happening.
Yeah.
And we all loved each other, and we all felt supported and happy to be together. It was the best kind of like erasure of genre that I've ever experienced in my life, because too many times shows are programmed to be, we're just going to do fingerstyle guitar players for the next 4 hours.
Right.
But those shows, everyone was invested in and really, really interested the whole evening, because every time you turned around, something different was happening.
Right.
And I loved that. And that's, I love that. Duluth still feels that way to me. It still feels like we're going to support all this stuff because we're just not big enough to ignore anything.
That's a great way of putting it. And what I have found, I'm doing my Wednesday nights at the Blackwater, 6 to 8. Mm-hmm. And, people that know I'm there, a lot of people that stumble, and it's really fun because a lot of people that are up visiting from Minneapolis just stumble into me. I bumped into a woman a couple of weeks ago. She goes, I haven't seen, the last time I saw you was 1985 at the 400. And I said, well, I'm still, when people ask me, Charlie, it's probably you're getting to that age where it's like, when they bump into me and they hadn't seen me, and it's like, well, Metsa, are you still playing? I go, I'm too old to join the FBI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You retire from what?
Exactly. This has been so much fun. We got a few minutes left. Let's talk a little bit about what we got coming up for you. Mr. Parr, play us out. Next week, we have the Divas, the Andrews sisters from the Iron Range, and then two of the original members of Whiskey River celebrating their 50th anniversary. I know, Paulie G, you're a big fan of the River Boys.
Whiskey River. Well, I'm a fan of. I'm a little less experienced in life than some folks who are the fans of the Whiskey River, but I appreciate their stories. There are a lot of local stories about Whiskey River, and we're going to be sharing some of those, and maybe there are some that we'll share that we probably shouldn't.
And two, like we said earlier, if you've got anybody that you think would be a great guest on Stars Over the Prairie, or you're interested in coming on board as a sponsor, a business, a festival, whatever you got going on, just get a hold of us at studio@starsovertheprairie.com. Charlie, it's so great to see you. It's funny because we bump into each other like every so often for 30 years, but it feels like I've known you forever.
It does, yeah. It's always good to see you, Paul.
It's really a pleasure. Who should be on the lookout for? Who are you listening to? Who are some names we should know about? Who are the good musicians out there?
There's so much wonderful stuff out there. I'm a massive fan of Jake Fussell.
Who's that?
Jake Fussell is a guitar player. He's from Virginia, around the Virginia area. He's he's one of these kind of folklorists, bringing in music and kind of like John, making it his own and putting it back out there. His records, I'm finding, are just amazing. Miriam Gendron from Canada, amazing guitarist and singer. I love listening to her music. She just put out a new record. Marisa Anderson, experimental kind of instrumental guitar player, just put out a record with drummer Jim White that is absolutely stunning.
I've heard of this Jim White guy. I got to get
Jim White,
into him.
He's Australian. He played with the Dirty Three.
Okay.
And absolutely an incredible drummer. And the record they made together is stunning. It's called Swallowtail.
Tell us about your new record, Little Sun. That was all done live in the studio, right?
Yeah, it was done live in the studio in Portland. Tucker Martine produced it. And we had a great time. We had Marisa was there. There's other musicians on there, which is weird for me. And I had a wonderful time, kind of, readjusting the songs so that everyone had space in them. And it was fun. And I'm pretty happy with it.
I was really enjoyed when you and Al Sparhawk did your residency in Tuesdays in January at the Cedar Lounge, where they're run by our good buddy Tim Nelson, who got you going at Fitker's, got me going at Fitker's 30 years ago, and doing great with his Earth Rider Brewing and his club.
Yep.
But I was really happy to see you pick up an electric Telecaster.
Yeah, that was fun.
I love that. Now, did you play some electric on the new record?
Yeah, I got to play Telecaster on the new record, and I really liked that. I was surprised because I'd never really bothered with electric instruments too much.
And it's such the Telecaster. It's such a true working man's guitar. I say, when you look at in terms of American products that came out that were perfect from the first time they rolled off the assembly line would be Levi Jeans, Marlboro Reds, Coca-Cola. Now they took out the cocaine. Unfortunately, Paulie, sorry for you and your great uncles and aunts, but the Telecaster, which was first is the broadcast, but they haven't changed any of those since they first came out.
Nope.
You know, when you've got it right.
Exactly.
So what is, you know, now that you've got the new record out, are you writing anything new, or are you just going to work on this record for a while and go out there and play and get out of the studio for a while?
I'm about halfway through another book.
Okay.
Another book of fiction.
What's that about?
Oh God, it's a series of longer little novellas that I'm right in the thick of it right now, and it's like songs, you know. There's stories that I make up in my head, and instead of thinning them down to make them into songs, I'm just fattening them up to make them into stories for a book. So I'm working on that. Next year there'll be some new music, but I'm planning on an instrumental project. I haven't really fleshed it out in my head yet, but you know, thinking about that Telecaster a little bit.
Well, and you got to get back together, Sparhawk, because one of my favorite records that Al gave me when he was in the studio was a signed vinyl version of Hollandale.
That was so much fun.
Oh,
working with Al was a huge honor for me, and
he's such a true artist.
Yeah, and the way that record came out, I was really proud of that he and I did that together.
It's and kind of, you know, when people think of Charlie Parr, I don't think they necessarily think of that record, but it's like one of my favorites. We got 2 minutes left, Mr. Parr. I need to ask you, when I listen to you, and I have for 30-some years now, I not only hear Spider John Kerner, but I hear a lot of a very good friend of mine, one of my mentors and heroes like yours, Dave Snaker Ray.
Yeah.
Say a few things about Snaker.
Well, I like I said earlier, I would go down to the Times Bar, and I probably made the man nervous because I'd sit there and just stare at him. I think Dave was one of the best blues guitar players that walked the earth, and his you know, and those guys, they all had this in common, I think, you know, because Dave's ability to like take in blues songs, you know, and I think like Shake 'Em On Down.
Right.
Dave Ray's version of Shake 'Em On Down is unique in the pantheon of all the versions of Shake 'Em On Down. Dave Ray's stands out to me.
Yeah.
It's just a little piece of art in itself. I went to see him once at the Brew House here in town. He's playing Jimmy Bell, and it's the wildest ride that I've ever been on in my life.
Well, you and I, Charlie Parr, have been fortunate not only to hang out with these guys, learn from them what we could, and have them influence us as we go on in our life. Thank you so much, Charlie. Thanks for Chris Allen for helping man the show. Paulie G, always a pleasure having you. We're on every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon, Stars Over the Prairie on the Big K, KDL, 610 AM, 103.9 FM. Stream at KDL610.com and find podcasts on wherever you like to get your streaming services.
Now, here's Paul Metsa.
Before we get into a great interview we had with Al Sparhawk, we had him in the studio in April. We wanted to end our 2024 with one of our favorites, and that was Al Sparhawk. So he's coming up. He's got a new record out called White Roses, My God. Don't forget New Year's Eve, Paul Metsa and Sonny Earl from 6 to 8, and then the Bruce Woodman Jam at Carmony's Irish Pub, 308 East Superior Street. Have a great New Year's, everybody. See you next year.
I don't think anyone embodies the spirit of the modern Duluth music scene more than Al Sparhawk. You might have heard of his band Low that started a while back in 1993. And now, after the passing of his lovely wife, Mimi, he's been doing a lot of different projects. I had the pleasure of seeing Al and Charlie do a month's worth of Tuesday nights at the Cedar Lounge in Superior, Wisconsin, and really enjoyed the shows, as I enjoyed both these guys' music for years. But Al, thanks so much for coming and joining us here on the show.
Oh, great! It's an honor. It's an honor, Paul. Really, years and years of knowing you from afar and getting to know you the last few years has been really great.
You know, it's the nice thing about moving to a new town or visiting a new town is meeting new friends. And I left a lot of beautiful friends
behind in Minneapolis. But I do have to say it's been a real honor and pleasure getting to know you because I have such a respect for your music and your vibe and everything about it. In fact, the first time I physically met you, what was that gig up on First Street? You were doing a Neil Young thing with our buddy Rich Matson.
Yeah. We have a Neil Young and Crazy Horse band called Tired Eyes.
And you guys play as loud as Crazy Horse because I was doing the gig downstairs. It was the week of the Duluth Superior Film Festival. And once you guys started playing, I said, it's over for me. I'll just go hear the band because nobody could hear me. But that was the first time I met you and your lovely wife. Mimi was there. I kind of ask you, though, I think Sparhawk is one of the coolest rock and roll last names of all time. What's the genesis? Where did that come from?
It's actually quite contrary to what it sounds like. It's actually an old British trade name. The spar is the front of the ship, and the Sparhawk would be sort of the slang name for the guy that they would send to the front of the ship to guide him through whatever. So it was sort of, I don't know. Yeah, it's an old British name, but yeah, it's weird. I get a lot of. I was just getting my brakes fixed, and you get the key tag back with your name on it.
Yeah, right.
People hear it wrong, so you get all kinds of Starback and
right.
all kinds of odd things.
You know what? I was I follow you on Twitter at Low the Band, and you posted some stuff of your father's music. Tell us about your dad, because he's a great singer. Those were great songs. He had a great kind of a lounge vibe.
Yeah, my father was grew up a big fan of jazz, Mel Torme, Rosemary Clooney, that kind of stuff. To this day, I love Rosemary Clooney just because of how my dad would just talk about her. But and he played drums. He was in a dance bands when I was a kid, and then when we moved to Minnesota in the late 70s, he was in country bands, and he would write tunes every once in a while, and had a couple of clever country songs. Was one "Ain't About to Think About Falling in Love Again" was the tagline on one, and then he did a couple of Christmas songs in the 80s, and got them done with an old musician friend of his who had a home studio, which was pretty novel at that time, 82, 83, and he did a couple Christmas songs, and I actually saw him hand a cassette to Tony Bennett one time.
Oh, cool! Yeah, working.
I don't think it ever went anywhere, but
working it, Dad.
But he was, man, he was a hustler. He was an indie. He was an indie artist before indie artists were a thing.
What is he still with us?
He's not. He went maybe 5. Well, yeah, it's maybe 6 or 8 years ago. Yeah.
Well, tell us about. We've got a mutual friend. One of the first musicians I met in Duluth years ago was John Ward, because he played with my buddy Tim O'Keefe, and I go in to visit him every now and then over there on 2nd Street, and there was the place that he said you guys did some of your first gigs at that. What was it? A telephone building at one time? Oh, yeah,
the Recyclable building. There's probably some people out there to remember that. Yeah, in the 90s, there was, I think it was at first or second, kind of east, first or second there, there's the old Bell building, the old telephone building. Someone had taken that over, and they had opened up the space, and there was a lot of all-ages shows there, kind of early 90s when kind of indie music was coming up. You had, Nirvana had that hit, so suddenly punk rock and all this kind of stuff that was going on in the underground in the 80s suddenly became really popular, and young people were like, hey, we like music, we want to go see bands, we're gonna form a band. That was a big part of the scene was it's not so much, it's like, okay, great, there were some big bands and some, people were, but the idea that like, hey, music is accessible, you could, you got some wild ideas, do it. And so that, there was a while there where there was kind of a young scene in town, and that's where kind of low came out of. Played our first couple shows with Recyclable, which is what they called that place, Recyclable.
Cool.
And
So what did the young Al Sparhawk, besides grooving to your dad's rehearsals, what were you listening to?
Oh, I don't know. I guess by the time I deviated off of my parents' collection, I think listened to a lot of Blues Brothers, Fleetwood Mac, Eagles. I think I learned my first few songs on a couple of instruments or on the bass, actually, was learning a couple of Eagles songs. But Barbra Streisand. I listened to a lot of that. There's a live Barbra Streisand record that I know by heart, actually.
Babs is cool.
But yeah, I don't know. Once I started picking up my own stuff, it was kind of early 80s, and I started looking toward the weird stuff. And, I saw pictures in magazines and books of this stuff called punk rock, and I was already kind of in love with it before I even heard it, And, because back then you'd just hear whisperings of this and a little hint of this, or somebody would have a record, and you go check it out. Like, wow, what is this stuff? But wow, those guys look like they're gonna kill you, And that was exciting. It was exciting for a young guy. And and Mim, Mim and I were in the, we grew up together, and she was hip to. I remember when she brought one of the early REM records home, and. I think she had a Husker Du record that I remember being like, wow, this is really mind blowing. So we kind of just got into the weird stuff. I don't know. I just somehow I liked stuff that had a little bit of an edge to it, and a little bit broken, a little bit post perfect.
Yeah. Well, that whole late 70s, early 80s, mid-80s scene. I saw REM's first show at Navy Island in St. Paul. Got that loved that first record. Yeah. And then I was always a huge, there's always this thing in Minneapolis. You probably are hip to it. It was like, are you into the Replacements or in a Husker Du? And I love them both.
Right.
But if you wanted to go see a band that's a little more consistent, you went to see Husker Du.
Right.
Right. And then I got to know Bob Mould, and I loved those guys. But I remember, being a young guy, going into clubs and hearing these bands in Minneapolis, just as they were starting to get national exposure. It was really, it was just a magical time.
Yeah, I'm sure it was really exciting.
How'd you come up with the name Low for the band?
That was a late night drive back from Minneapolis. I think I had been kind of pondering the concept a little bit, the idea of a band that was playing really quiet and real simple. I was kind of considering Mim and thinking, wow, what kind of music could we do together? Because I'd been in some bands on my own with different people, but I'd always been, I really think it'd be cool to do something with Mim. What could I do? And at the time, I guess I'd been running into a lot of things like some of the softer Velvet Underground stuff, some experimental people like Lamont Young, Stephen Reich, even like Brian Eno. People who were doing really experimental, kind of minimal music, stuff that would just kind of go for a while and be very static, and sort of push your sense of patience a little bit. And,
right.
I could see that there was an edge there, just as much as sort of a punk band could kind of make you feel a little bit scared and a little bit uncomfortable, especially early on when when people were just starting to do this intense stuff. It was probably a little disturbing as much as it was scaring. But
you're talking to a guy that's partied with both Pete Seeger and Gigi Allen.
Okay, there you go. All right, well, you're there. You know what I'm talking about. Well, anyway, yeah, that was kind of, I don't know. We when we started, we did a show. Did a show down at the Recycle Bell. I think we only had like 4 or 5 songs, and as expected, it divided the audience immediately.
Fun.
A few people who really wanted to listen and were really moved by it, and then a lot of people were really confused, and a lot of people just talked over it or left the room or whatever. And so that was great, and that's pretty much how the shows would go for the next 5 or 6 years.
Well, I'm so excited that you brought your beautiful old Gill guitar along.
Sure.
And when we were setting this interview up, you said you'd like to play a couple of tunes. So
sure.
Take it over, Al Sparhawk.
All right, well, it's morning, everybody, so, I mean, an artist is not supposed to apologize.
Or be up this early.
Or be up this early. All right, well, let's see this little. So I took my guitar and I threw down some chords and some words I could sing without shame. and I soon had a song. I played it around for some friends, but they all said the same. They said music's for fools, you should go back to school. The future is prisons and math. So I did what they said. Now my children are fed, 'cause they pay me to do what I'm asked. I forgot all my songs. The words now were wrong, and I burned my guitar in a rage. But the fire came to rest in your white velvet breast. So somehow I just know that it's safe.
Wow, man, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much. What was the name of that song?
It's called Death of a Salesman.
Really?
Yeah.
You and Arthur Miller. God bless you. When did you write that?
Oh, that one I maybe, let's see, if I've been doing this for 30 years, I probably wrote that at least 15 or 18 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, that one, I always think about my dad and everybody else that I know who has a little song in them, and you do it, and I don't know, I guess I wish everybody that aspired to that and who wanted to write something and just had something in them would just do it and see that the joy is in the doing it, and not to get too hung up on whether people hear it or whether you get any credit. It's the real joy, and I know you'll agree with this, Paul. The real joy is when something kind of comes into being, when something creative happens and you see something that's there now that wasn't there, and it's humbling and it can really scare a person and make you retreat into your own weaknesses and your own fears and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's all, the joy is all really there when it comes into being.
That is so well put. I remember my first blues acoustic guitar hero was Brownie McGee, and his motto was, "My guitar is my weapon against the world."
Yeah. That's a good one.
And but there is, I know what you're talking about. That number one, when you get the genesis for the idea, whether it's I've seen graffiti on bathroom walls. I said that's a great idea for a song. Or I've seen a line in a newspaper or heard somebody in a crowded bar. So you get that, or as a guitar player, you just hit on that right set of chords, or in your case, have that new guitar tuning, whatever it is.
Yeah.
In fact, what tuning is that?
This is open G. I've played in open G since I was 18 or 19.
It's beautiful. And then, boom, don't you think, in a way, some of these songs, I know my best, they kind of write themselves.
Yeah. I'm sure, you've probably experienced some of the most striking tunes just feel like they fall out of you, and they happen really fast. I mean, there's things you work on for a long time and can find that place, but boy, there's something, there's something going on in the universe when a song kind of falls together, and and this is, I'm saying that as a person who, it's very hard. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't crank out a lot of stuff.
Oh, I've gone a long time. I've gone maybe sometimes a year or two before I even try to write a song.
Yeah.
But then I'll go through times when I'll write, 15 songs in 6 weeks.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird wave. Sometimes you kind of just got to your mind's just kind of got to get there. Also, you know, I find songwriting a lot of times it's kind of like, well, singing's like this too. It's like running a marathon. It's like you're not going to just kind of like out of the blue one day, like, all right, well, time to go. Let's go run this thing. You got to kind of go out and you got to do it. And like, okay, here's what we're doing. You got to go and today you're telling your body like, here's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, your mind and your body's like, what is it? What are you doing? You know, and then okay, the next day you do it again. And songwriting is like that. You know, I'll pick up and I'll be like, okay, I should probably start working on stuff. And man, it'll take a week of sitting down in the basement, pounding your head against the wall, and coming up with nothing before you're like, okay, there's something.
You know,
it comes, and then pretty soon it's. I always say it's about getting in. It's kind of like you got to exercise it. You got to tell your brain like, hey, we're doing this now.
It's a psychic muscle.
Yeah, and the next day it'll be like, oh, we're doing this again. Okay, boom, and it'll start kicking in, and there's a you know there's a big wall there, even for people like you and I who've done this for years. You know, there's a big wall, and it feels pretty impossible sometimes.
There is, absolutely. You know, it's funny. I ran Grandma's Marathon years ago. I ran the width.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I did that just this morning.
So I gotta tell you, Al Sparhawk, I had been aware of Low for years, and you know, got to know about you and Mim from just because Duluth is really kind of a special place, but didn't hear you until a couple years ago at it was Mim's last gig at Bayfront Park. The great Tom Herbers, who I've worked with, was mixing, and I think you had Liz Draper, lady I met at a coffee shop, serving coffee, one of the best bass players in town now playing. And it was the beautiful evening that, you know, the dusk and the lake and the stars and this beautiful loud sound system. And it was like, boom, Low. It makes perfect sense now.
Good. Well, good. Yeah, we toured a lot. We did a lot. It was wild. There was a while there where we were doing over 100 shows a year. And,
wow.
And we did it for almost 30 years, you know.
Well, what was really unique, and I have to ask you, what was it like the first time you guys sang together? Because I was, you know, I read something. I always love reading about you in Mojo magazine. I know that guy, and it's such a great music magazine. But one of the writers compared your harmonies to, and there's no greater comparison to Graham Parsons and Emmylou Harris.
Yeah, there's.
But what was the first time that you guys sang? I said, "Wow!"
Well, Mim, you know, Mim and we grew up in the we were in the same class at 28 from fourth grade.
Wow!
So I knew her for a long time, and I knew her family sang. She was the youngest of three daughters, and her mom and dad were both sang, and they loved doing music at home, and they would do, you know, like the summer fest in town. They would get up and do a set or, you know, some tunes, and the kids would sing along. And Mim, being the youngest, would always sing harmonies, and her father was really good at that as well. And I think they just connected. And while her sister and her mother were kind of more the front people, Mim and her father would sing backups, and she just really had a natural feel for it. And then, just growing up being friends, I knew she was into music. She played drums in the high school band, so it just kind of connected. But I remember, I remember sitting down and strumming through Heart of Gold, one time at her house and singing together, and being like, "Wow, this is really, you know." I mean, I don't know that there was ever a time that I didn't know that she was pretty gifted singer.
Well, it was, you know, not only it was really what a beautiful thing. You've got two people in love, you're married, and you're playing in the band together. But that's not always easy.
Oh no, it's very hard. You know, every relationship you work through things. I mean, I remember when we were young, we used to, you know, when we were young and first together and looking toward life. You know, in the future, we wanted to do something together. We would pray to be able to do something together with our lives.
And you did.
And we did. Yeah, music ended up being a really beautiful journey, and we were able to be together a lot, all the time. I think it would have been probably devastating to be gone that long, from a family. I really sympathize with people who have families and people at home who then have to be on the road for weeks at a time. I think it's pretty brutal, and I don't know. We were really lucky to be together, and when you go through things that are hard, and you go through things and have little victories, that's the essence of life, And those
it's all about the little victories, man, isn't it?
Yeah, even the little losses, man. That's when you've gotten your butt kicked alongside someone you care about. It's almost as powerful as when you come out.
You guys are very revered in Europe, and what I love about Low the Band, your Twitter account, is people send pictures of how they pack up their van when they're going on tour, like Al Sparrow, the granddaddy of touring and van packing.
Yeah. I don't know how that started. I think I took a picture of.
It's fun though.
Or I think I razzed a friend or something about their packing job. Like, hey, watch out! Don't be putting the cymbals up on top like that. You're gonna decapitate somebody. So, and then it turned into something on Twitter, and I get bands all the from time to time send me photos of their thing.
Oh, I love it.
I'll rate it.
It's a lot of fun. But when I'm not wasting the rest of my life away watching cat and dog videos, I love checking in with that. And you just got back from Europe.
No. A few months ago.
Yeah.
We did some shows over in Europe. Owen, who's drummer in the Salty Dogs here in town.
Love that band.
Yeah, great band. They're doing great. And Owen was with me. Dave from Trampled by Turtles, banjo player from Trampled by Turtles, was with me. And then my son playing bass. And my daughter joined us on one of the shows as well, and some recording. So.
And you've got an upcoming tour.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
I'm going down. I'm doing a few shows on the way down to Florida and then back, kind of via Nashville and Chicago, Minneapolis. Just kind of doing a run. There's someone who runs a festival down in Jacksonville who's been wanting me to come play down there for years, and it sort of worked out fine this week.
When I was doing a little research on my guest Al Sparhawk, I was looking at 12 or 13 albums, 12 or 13 CDs, tons of EPs, this and that. I mean, you guys have put up more records than the most. Name your band, the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, it's really pretty weird.
And you were kind enough to bring something that we can give away to the listeners. So for the third caller calls in here, we're just getting our studio line together here on Stars Over the Prairie, just like the big boys uptown. The studio number is 218-722-0839. Third caller will get what? What did you bring to give away, Al?
I brought a vinyl copy of the last record that Low did called Hey What, and it was I don't know. It's a very intense record. I would warn you that it's very sonically experimental, but it was nominated for a Grammy for engineering. The guy who produced it is named B.J. Burton. He's from Minneapolis, and he's a very exciting and very forward-looking producer and sound artist.
Say, I'm going to ask Paulie G here, the co-host, to jump in and tell us about. He was just down in Florida. He's a big baseball guy, so he's down in Fort Myers checking out Twins. But you ran into somebody who was talking about Duluth, right?
The amount of folks down in Florida who are from Minnesota or the Twin Cities is phenomenal.
Yeah, I'll bet.
We went mini golfing because that's the kind of thing I like to do, and the owners there were from the Twin Cities. They're like, "Oh, we just came here and never left."
And then you bump into some musician that was talking about how cool Duluth was?
We did. I ran into a couple, actually. If you go to the Twins game at Hammond Stadium there, which is beautiful, it's like Minnesota Reunion, which isn't totally great when you do the, like, I'm going to get sunburned the first day we're here, and then I have to wear my winter clothes the rest of the time because I don't want to expose myself to the torment that is the Florida sun for the next 5 days or whatever. But yeah, I bumped into somebody who grew up in Duluth, and we were talking Duluth bands, and we were talking homegrown and all kinds of stuff. And then you see these folks when you're flying, because anyone who's ever flown out of the Duluth airport, it's an amazing experience because you get to see Duluth from the sky. I mean, I've seen the Twin Cities from the sky, a bunch of times because you fly in and out of there. But when you see Duluth,
I've been really high in Superior, but that's
when you see Duluth from the sky, it's amazing with the harbor and everything and Park Point, and so you see these folks on the flights, and then you see them, around riding bikes and walking on the beach or whatever, and yeah, lots of good stories about home, which I thought we were leaving for a while.
What are you doing? Anything for the upcoming Homegrown Festival, Al?
Yeah. I'm. I think on this Saturday, I'm playing I play guitar in a band called Damien, and they're playing, I'm not sure exactly where, but it's on the Saturday evening. And then later that night, I think I might be playing with Derecho Rhythm Section, which is that kind of a funk band with my son. We might be playing this late night thing at Rich Naram's, which I probably...
Oh, yeah,
which is unofficial. which is unofficial.
Right. I think Rich might be listening. And also, the Ghost Hunter, Chris Allen, our great engineer, he's playing with his band Unabridged May 3rd at Sir Ben's,
awesome.
Friday night, 9 p.m.
All right, yeah, Homegrown's
So
rad.
I was talking to a band called Story Hill. I don't know if you ever bumped into those guys. And they were Chris and Johnny to get going. They were from Bozeman, Montana. Now they're back in Bozeman. And they were going... They said Duluth is a thing now. And I think it has a lot to do with Trampled by Turtles, Charlie Parr, and my guest Al Sparhawk. But what is other than the fact that it's got a great reputation, has for years for being, I used to, I've called Duluth Little San Francisco. But what do you think, how do you think Duluth itself and the environment has inspired Low?
Wow. Well, there's a lot about. I mean, there's a lot of angles to it. I mean, Mim and I came from out. we were out in rural, out past Bemidji, where we grew up. So,
It's where my mom was born.
Oh, right on.
Black Duck, actually.
Yeah.
Bemidji High School.
Yeah. Out past. I was just 20 minutes past her. No, we when we came to Duluth for school, it was a big city. It was like, oh boy, exciting, man. The first time anybody tried to sell me crack was in Duluth, man. And we're like, whoa, I am in the city now. Yeah. But I've found this. There's an interesting thing about Duluth. I think as an artist, there's interesting that I kind of call it the underdog syndrome, or the off the beaten path syndrome. I don't know, up here we're kind of off the beaten path, and you kind of, at least for me, it's kind of constantly feeling like, we're a little bit out of the way here. We're out away from where the real action is down in Minneapolis or Chicago stuff, and so I kind of feel that you kind of get a little bit of an attitude like, well, we got our own thing here. There's a little bit of you kind of have to bite down a little hard and be like, yeah, no, we got our own thing. We're going to make our own thing here. Part of it's fear.
Be true to your school.
Yeah, part of it's fear because we don't want to go to the big city and compete with that. But I don't know. Yeah, I think coming from here, you gotta dig a little harder, and you kind of come from and realize like, I'm going to be treated a little bit outsider anyway, so I might as well lean into that.
When I moved up here a couple of years ago, it was the 2021 going into 2022. And it actually set a record, 100-year record for snowfall, 140 inches. So I'm going back, and the last time we had about that much snow was back in 1941. 1950 had a little bit, 1996. But I was going, in my own head, because I grew up on the Iron Range, and I totally agree with you. Coming down to Duluth was like going to Minneapolis from the Iron Range. The home and boat show and seeing George Goebel and the Duluth City of the North with all the lights.
Burger King.
Yeah, I used to. But so I always, when I think about growing up on the Iron Range, all the snow, I remember coming home from Mora, Minnesota, where my mom's mom and dad lived, driving on, that was Thanksgiving weekend, and these just big snow piles. And I go, geez, we really haven't had snowfall or winter like that. And then I was thinking about it last night when I was looking at these snowfall records. I go, yeah, but Paul, you were half the size.
Yeah.
At the time you were 3.5 feet tall, so everything looked, What do we got going on here?
We should take a break.
Okay, we're going to take a little break and be back with Al Sparhawk. He's got another song for us. You're listening to Stars Over the Prairie.
I'm Lucas, and I had Z LASIK at Weiss Eye Center. Went great. Little to no pain yesterday. Surgery went great. Everything else went home, took a nap, woke up, and haven't really had any pain since. Everybody was super nice and talked you through every step of the way, and I barely had to ask any questions because they knew what to say. They filled it all in. For me, it'll just be snowmobiling's my big one. I try to do a lot of riding in the winter. I farm in the summer, so this year was a big difference where a couple of times I had to borrow somebody's helmet, so I put my glasses on and ride because just the weather conditions, everything else, out there riding blind. So I'm really excited for that. It's well worth the money, and it's going to change my life for a long time, I'll tell you that.
Weiss Eye Center is the only clinic to offer blade-free Z LASIK in the Northland. To find out more and to arrange your free consultation, call 218-625-1917 today or visit weisseyecenter.com for more information. Weiss Eye Center. See the best.
Every day deserves a superior beer. Earth Rider Brewery's decorated brewers hand-select hops that lend citrus notes to the crisp and easy-drinking Superior Pale Ale. Visit Earth Rider Brewery's Cedar Lounge Tap Room on the Working Harbor in Superior for their award-winning flagship and seasonal brews on tap and to go. To find out much more about Earth Rider Brewery events, join the mailing list and locate Earth Rider Beer near you at earthrider.beer. Hold fast.
River City Records and Books, voted best record store of 2023 in the Twin Ports by the Duluth Reader, has in stock thousands of new and used vinyl records from classic rock to punk, grunge, and metal to hip-hop, rap, jazz, reggae, and dub. Thousands of books, CDs, DVDs, Blu-ray, and VHS. Also a large selection of cassettes, comic books, and music magazines. Stop in and see them at 1814 West Superior Street in the friendly Lincoln Park Craft District. Open 9 to 7, 7 days a week.
If you're looking for a great hang in downtown Duluth, I highly suggest Carmody's Irish Pub. They're located at 308 East Superior Street, open Tuesday through Sunday. The host and hostess are Eddie and Liz. Eddie is a retired Chicago cop. If he happens to be in the club when you're there, talk to him. He's got more stories than I do. They've also got a great jam session every Tuesday night from 8 to 11 with Bruce Woodman. So if you're a musician, tried and true, that has been out there playing and just want to go try out some new stuff, go down and hang out with Bruce and the crew. Or if you're just up and coming, bring your horn or your stringed instrument or just want to sing, go sit in with Bruce Woodman every Tuesday night at Carmody's Pub, 308 East Superior Street.
You're listening to Stars Over the Prairie with Paul Metsa right here on KDAL.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Just the last part of Stars Over the Prairie. I've been so enjoying talking, listening to my guest, Al Sparhawk, my new Duluth buddy. We're going to, we just gave away a record. We're going to, let's see, who is that lucky guy? Alan Sapek. You can pick up your album, the new vinyl copy of Lowe's record Haywire. Pick it up at River City Records. Give me a couple hours to get over there. It's on my way home at 1814 Superior Street. And we've also have a signed copy of Louis Kemp's book, Dylan and Me. And our second caller in this hour will get that Louis and Me by Louis Kemp signed copy. You can pick that up at River City Records. So, Al, what do you got? I've been fortunate enough to see you. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, What, they can't do it telepathically?
No,
like
they can't guess
Like
either.
they're running TVs now? 218-722-0839. Call the studio line 218-722-0839. And if you want to get on our mailing list, go to studio@starsovertheprairie.com. Al, I've seen 6 or 8 of your shows over the last year or so. So is it Dureco? How do you pronounce that?
Derecho.
Yeah.
Derecho rhythm section, kind of like Atlanta rhythm section. But Derecho. Yeah, Derecho it's actually Mim, my wife came up with that name when we were first starting. It's the name of a large windstorm.
Okay.
So, if it's, sometimes you have these big windstorms that kind of take up half the state. That's a derecho. I think it's Latin based, and it's like a direct wind or direct.
And your son plays bass in that.
Yeah, my son.
Let's tell about your son. He's a really cool guy, great player.
Yeah, he's really good. I don't know, sometime during the pandemic, he came to me and was like, "Hey, Dad, can you show me?" Or let's see. Yeah, hey, have you heard this Curtis Mayfield song? He said, yeah, it's really good. He said, I think I've figured out the bass part. I'm like, really? That's
Wow.
great. And of course, I had to hurry up quick learn a couple Curtis Mayfield songs. But yeah, he kind of came with the bass after he had played drums in high school, band and stuff like that. But over the pandemic, the bass came out, which was a big surprise. And I tried, you know how parents are. You see something, they're into this, and you want to swoop in and just like over. There's the danger of overwhelming them. So I was like, okay, I know. So I tried to just really try to contain myself and hold back and not swoop in too much. But yeah, he really took to it. He's I don't know. I mean,
what's his name?
His name's Cyrus.
Yeah,
and he has a really good ear. He definitely hears things differently than I do. He's able to hear what he wants to play and then play it, whereas I'm more of a, what's the structure here? And I'm just gonna dance around in it.
I'm glad you came up with that, because I was talking to when I was going to see your residencies over at the Cedar Lounge with Charlie Parr. Charlie was an old buddy of mine. We were talking on the break, and we were going, because Charlie and I, we're folk and blues guys. That's where our thing comes from, right? That's how we write songs. But your thing, you come from it's like real left field in a way. Like Charlie and I wouldn't start writing songs like that. I mean, you do have what you just played is more of a traditional thing. Right. But what is your, what gets you into songwriting? I mean, what are your doors that you walk through?
Well, yeah. Mostly the guitar. I mean, I'm usually, when I'm trying to write, I'm sitting with the guitar a lot and just kind of trying to find something new, find something that kind of sparks an idea. I'm actually a pretty big fan of kind of classic pop structure.
Yeah.
Roy Orbison. I mean, you can't help but sometimes just sitting down and strumming through a couple Beatles songs. I know it's such a cliche, but it really does kind of just open up the window, and you want to think, you start hearing melodies, and you start hearing things come in over ideas. You'll kind of be working with a couple chords, and I don't know. Yeah, I like good melody. I like the architecture of a song. I'm always kind of thinking where's the focus? Where's the tension? There's a tension. Where's that building? And then, are you releasing the tension? And if so, how, when?
Right.
Is it something that kind of keeps building and then releasing again? There's a lot of ways to approach it. And I don't know. I've always liked that about songwriting. And then because of the flow and the fact that it was sort of minimal and quiet, and a lot of because we were so slow, the songs
right.
You write a verse and a chorus that you can tag at the end, and they're already into 4 minutes, if you're playing that slow. So a lot of I started out playing it was just writing really simple songs. It was a great way to learn how to write songs and get around the idea of okay, what is it? Well, it's kind of a catchy chorus here. Well, how do we make that do its thing?
Right.
How do you get out of the way of what's
Let
already
it breathe.
there? How do you get out of the way?
Let it happen.
Yeah. So I don't know. I love playing with Charlie and that tradition of sort of here's here's sort of the vibe. Here's harmonically the structure we're going here, and it could go anywhere at any moment, you know. And you got to be ready to go.
Well,
I love that about playing with Charlie.
You were so nice to bring me a signed vinyl copy of Hollandale, kind of an experimental record you did with Charlie. It was like my favorite record of the year when it came out.
Yeah, really beautiful. It's just long instrumental pieces that Charlie pulled, and I'm just sort of barely playing right behind him.
Oh, it's very
my
beautiful.
goal is to not be detectable.
What you when we were conversing before, while setting up this interview, you said you were going to grace us with a brand new song.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Al Sparhawk, very excited, debuting a new number here on Stars Over the Prairie.
All right.
What's it called?
It's called Torn and in Ashes. And I'm going to have to bleep. I'm going to have to change one of the words because we're on radio. But I don't know. I've been exploring language lately and sort of what words mean and how they're culturally different to different people and different generations. And I don't know. You really got to open your mind sometimes to be able to not get hung up on words when you're trying to listen to somebody, you know. It's a hard thing to remember. All right. Torn and in ashes, all in one book. What I'd have learned if I had a look. Confused by the lashes burning time took. Leaving you now with only what's good. When will the last word be as the first? Is it a circle or just reverse? You turn down your eyes whenever asked why. Yet the same stupid answer every time. Torn and in ashes, all in one book. What I'd have learned if I had a look. Confused by the lashes burning time took. Leaving you now with only what's good. Turn down your eyes whenever asked why. The same stupid answer every time.
Wow. Man, that is really beautiful.
Yeah. Minimalism, man.
Yeah.
Not a lot,
I'm
don't
all
have to come up
about
with
it,
too many
man.
words.
It filled up
Sing
my
it
headphones
slower.
with complete soulful joy. See, we're going to try something here on
Yeah.
Stars of the Prairie. We're going to open up the phone lines. If there's anybody out there that would like to ask Al Sparhawk a question about anything, hot stock tips, horoscopes, he's wide open. He's a very open-minded
Philosophy.
guy. Philosophy. Yeah, whatever you want, call us at studio line 218-722-0839. So what do you got going on? It's going to be, they say it's going to snow. I don't feel it. You're a long-time Duluthian. I'm not feeling it.
I don't feel it. No, no, it doesn't feel like it right now. That's for sure. But yeah, it's fine. A little break. Last winter was wild.
The first year here, when I was living in first floor of the Dillon's house, I didn't have a garage. So when I was
on the hill.
On the hill, right. So I said, when I was looking to buy a house, first thing you want in Duluth is the Lakeview. 1 year without a garage, I said, screw the Lakeview, give me a garage. I could walk to the lake. I've been there. I follow you quite a bit, Al Sparhawk, and you're doing a lot of back and forth into the Twin Cities.
Yeah. The funk band, derecho rhythm section. We play once or twice a month, and then Black Eyed Snake's been starting to play down there again, and I don't know. Yeah, different thing. It's close.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a little.
Do you drive back after the gig?
Well, yeah. From Duluth, it's tradition. It's musician's tradition. You have to drive back home after the gig, or otherwise you're not tough. Shows are earlier nowadays, which is different. I remember.
Yeah,
I remember coming home and it'd be sun coming up, and you'd come over that hill.
Right. You're done packing up at 2:30.
Yeah.
A.m. Right.
The 2:30 a.m. people
stumbling into Toby's at 5 a.m. Parade night, trying to get those great buttermilk donuts.
Oh, I suppose they were fresh then.
Oh, I think they're the best donuts in Minnesota. By the way, we'll do a little shout out, even though they're not. Take on advertising. Hey, anybody out there in the Stars Over the Prairie radio land, if you got any ideas of any cool guests, any musicians, do we have a caller? Well, here we go. Here we go. Our first caller.
Hello.
Hello. What would you like to ask Mr. Sparhawk?
I always like to ask where they met their wife.
Well, I showed up at fourth grade in Clearbrook, Minnesota, and she was in the class.
Childhood sweethearts. Was it childhood sweethearts, or was it later on?
Yeah, like in high school we started dating, but yeah, we were friends and kind of hung out with the same.
Okay, thank you.
Little crew, but yeah.
Say we got time for about one, maybe two callers. Call the studio line. Talk to Dr. Sparhawk. 218-722-0839.
Yeah, thanks for the question.
All right. We do have do we got another caller there? Ghost Hunter? Okay.
What keeps you busy these days outside of music?
Well, to be honest, I know it's sort of obvious, but like becoming single, or I'm not single, but sort of having to run the house by myself.
Oh man,
is pretty bizarre. As one would expect, I've gained even more respect for the subtle and quiet work that housekeeper, people who keep the house, usually mothers, do. I don't know. I don't know where to start with that. There's just sort of everyday little lessons and little surprises and little humbling moments where you realize, like, oh yeah, this is a lot of work, and all the things, you appreciate the people who did it and do it.
Plus, it's tough enough. I live with my lovely rescue dog Blue. But I always said I have so much respect for musicians that have healthy families, because it's a strange way to make a living.
Yeah. Traveling, it's a really bizarre mentality. Anybody who uses their creativity to make a living knows that it's 24/7. Your mind's sort of always working on it. You don't get breaks, and it sits so close to your self-esteem section in your brain that
plus we're all a little bit insecure, right?
Yeah, we're all, of course. That's why we got into music. We're trying to explain ourselves, darn it. So yeah, it's got its own treachery.
It's all treachery, really, at certain days. What, Al Sparhawk, what is any recording projects coming up?
Yeah, I did a couple things here this last year. I did something that was using some technology that I was sort of trying to figure out, some synthesizer and drum machine and some stuff that sort of really tweaks sound out, and I ended up recording a bunch of stuff that sounds really contrary to everything else that I do, and I think I'm going to put it out anyway. And I also, I don't know, a month or two ago went and recorded a couple songs, singing a couple of my songs, singing with Trampled by Turtles.
Cool. Well, we're going to, whatever Al Sparhawk puts out, Paul Metsa is going to listen to. Play a little bit of guitar while we got to say goodbye to the fine folks up here in the Arrowhead region.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Something positive?
Yeah, just bang on that guitar. I love your guitar playing. So happy to have Al Sparhawk on live. Every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon. If you got any ideas for us, you'd like to maybe sponsor the show, get a hold of us at studio at starsovertheprairie.com.
You're the best, Paul.
Thank you.
Used to be so scared of you, man, when I first moved here in the 80s.
I'm just a puppy dog.
That guy, like, wow, look at that blonde Elvis